So I showed that video of Zach King, who's an internet magician of sorts. I showed that video because I want to think about the question, what is truth? So even though we know that's video trickery, it's video magic, what if you'd never seen video before at all? You don't know what video is. You just interact with real life, and all of a sudden someone showed you that. You almost certainly would not understand what was going on. You may think it is some sort of real magic. You might actually believe the things that Zach King is doing with the sun and with the glass. You might believe those are real because you're seeing them with your own eyes and you have no frame of reference. Now, I've actually seen some pretty far-fetched videos, almost as crazy as this one, online that people actually do believe. Because right now, in this country, especially because of social media and the propagation of propaganda in the form of videos and memes, we have a big problem with our ability to discern what is true. So, I wanted to think today about how we might change how we discern what is true and how we might use that understanding to bridge the divide that exists in this country. Actually, it's more than just a divide. It's a gaping wound that we need to heal. In order to understand truth, I've thought about defining three things first, and those are facts, lies, and myths. Now, facts, you know what these things are. Facts are things that are substantiated by evidence that everyone can agree upon. I'm speaking these words. I'm looking into a camera. You can see and hear me doing these things, and you trust me that it's not video magic. So it's substantiated by evidence that most everyone can agree upon. It's fact. A lie is when someone purposely tells you something that they know is not factually true.
The president in no way, form, or fashion has ever promoted or encouraged violence. If anything, quite the contrary.
Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
Now, don't get me wrong. We all deceive sometimes. We all lie or cheat sometimes. I know you may be thinking, well, no, I don't. I don't lie. I don't cheat. No. Let me give you an example of when I cheated once and see if you can relate to this. I was at the gym before COVID, and I weighed myself on the scale at 200 pounds, 243 pounds. So then I went over to one of these machines they have where you have to put in your weight in order to calibrate it. And I put in 240 pounds. Now I just weighed myself at 243. But you see, we have this cognitive flexibility. As long as we continue to believe we're good people, that the lie isn't changing that, we're okay telling little white lies, cheating a little bit. At the time, I was thinking, well, you know, the scale could have been off. Could have been off, you know, a little bit. Could be. Maybe it's water weight. Maybe I will weigh 240 after I work out today. I'll lose 3 pounds in one workout. We have this cognitive flexibility. We can deceive ourselves. We can deceive ourselves for many reasons, too. Malingering. That's calling in sick for work when you're not really sick. Almost all of us have done it. I'd venture to say all of us have done it at one time or another. We lie out of frustration sometimes. We may lie, I used an example in another sermon once, to help another person. I use this example. If a single mother has run out of money and needs to feed her child, she might steal formula. It's deception, but it's for a reason. So we all do deceive sometimes. However, when the deception is purposeful to manipulate others, when you start purposely telling lie after lie to get something from someone else, to get what you want, and then that becomes your modus operandi, how you operate all the time, manipulating people, manipulating the populace, manipulating this, and then it's truly harmful, and it risks also evolving into a culture of lies when those around you begin lying for the same purpose. And that's very dangerous, and that's what we have right now in our government, in the White House. But how did it get that far, you might ask? And you'll notice I'm going into lies a little more than fact, because this is a very important, we have such a problem with lying in this country. I feel I need to flush this out more before I get to truth. So how did we get to this culture of lying? Well, in this particular case, it started out with a person who was already willing to lie. I won't name names. And those who decided to work for that person understood that he's willing to lie, and due to their cognitive flexibility, we're able to justify at first a few white lies told here and there. If you're working for an agenda that you think is important and you lie for that purpose, then you're a good person, right? Right. However, as we all know, when we lie, if we don't want to get caught, what do? We lie more. And when you tell a one little white lie for a good purpose, well, let me tell two, because I need to cover up and I really need to push this agenda. I already told one, two won't be that bad. And then if you tell two lies, well, three won't hurt. And then three becomes four, and so on. And that's how it grows. And the problem is, not only do lies easily multiply like that, they also grow in size. If you've told 5 little lies, now 10 little lies, what's one big lie? It's equal, right? 10 little lies, one big lie. Do the math. Of course, then that big one turns into, well, I told this big one, I can tell just another one. And you get the idea. Before you see it coming, you have a culture of lies. And once a culture of lies has developed, what happens next is that people who are unwilling to lie are pushed out of the inner circle. And before you know it, we have an inner circle where every single person is willing to lie. And that is effectively how the White House functions right now. Or functions right now. So I said that before we get talking about truth, we have to agree on these definitions: facts, lies, and myth. What about myth? Myth is important. There are truths that are based in fact, and there are truths that are not factual, but that are still truth. They're not lying because some person sincerely believes them. It is their truth. And when there are truths that are not factual, not based in fact, that people actually believe, that is a myth. Myth is important. It's vitally important in our search for truth because studies have shown that we humans are all inclined to believe myths, even over factual truth. If you show someone absolute evidence that the myth that they're believing is wrong, if that myth moves them, if that myth enrages them, if that myth makes them fearful or happy or stokes their emotions in some way, if they're committed to that myth, it is human nature to still choose to believe that myth over what you're seeing with your own eyes. And that's all of our natures. We all do it. Someone I knew years ago said to me, Obama's a Muslim. I saw him swear on the Quran. Well, obviously, that's not factually true. And I thought I could reason with this person. I thought I could show them the factual evidence of Obama swearing on the Bible, which I did, and Keith Ellison swearing on the Quran. I asked if she was sure what she saw was Obama, because Keith Ellison is a Muslim politician, a proud Muslim politician, and a person of color, and someone who actually did swear on the Quran. And she said no. She said she knew who Keith Ellison was, and it was absolutely Obama that she saw. My video of Obama swearing on the Bible was probably doctored. She believed the myth. So now we've talked about facts, lies, and myth. Let's get to truth. What is the truth, if there is such a thing? Well, one of our congregants, and you know who you are, once told me that there isn't such a thing. We should never use the word truth in singular, only truths. Because where fact is objective, truth is subjective. It's based on context and perspective. My truth may be different from your truth, but they're still both true, our truths, whether they're factual or not. The person I knew believed the Obama Muslim myth. It was her absolute truth. I couldn't change her mind. I had to understand that she absolutely believed this. She believed that the glass of water was cut and there was cake inside because she saw it with her own eyes. My Orthodox conservative brother would swear on the Bible that what he believes socially, religiously, and politically is the truth. And I would swear on Darwin's On the Theory of Evolution that what I know to be true as a liberal humanist is absolutely true. We're both intelligent people. Actually, he's a little smarter than me. And yet, our deeply held truths, both our truths, are diametrically opposed. But they're both absolutely true for us. My truth as a person of privilege, very different from the lived truth of a person of color. I love this visual example of how truths differ. My wife and I were at the therapist, and the therapist showed me a picture when my wife wasn't in the room. And then I left the room, my wife came in, she showed my wife the same picture I was out of the room. Then we came back in together, and she asked us each to describe what we saw. And we had completely different descriptions of the picture. The same picture. Because the therapist had shown me the back of the picture, and she showed my wife the front of the picture. So we were looking at the same picture, the same object, but because of the perspective, there were completely different truths, even though both of us were telling the truth, the absolute truth of what we saw. So here's how we get in trouble. We're constantly asking for the truth. We want to know the truth. Tell us the truth. What we're actually asking for in these instances is the facts. Tell us the facts. If we indeed ask for truth, then we have to understand that there are many, depending on perspective. We have to then be ready to validate someone else's truth. We have to be ready to respect someone else's lived truth, knowing that they may be looking at the back of the picture, and they absolutely believe what they're seeing and saying, even if it's not what we see at all. So the truth is that there are many truths, and to try and find the truth is futile. This understanding is what we need to move forward to close this divide in our country, to heal this wound. Now, I'm sure you've all had a wound at one time or another. Let me say they don't heal quickly. We know that. I often find myself thinking, why doesn't the other side just understand they're wrong and let's get this over with, let's get along. And by the way, the other side is wrong. Well, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that quickly. We can't just push our truth on others and they accept it, expecting the divide to close up right away so everyone can just get along. We have to understand that wounds take time to heal, and as wounds heal, there's pain. I have to listen to and accept someone else's truth that is very painful for me, that I don't want to accept. And when a wound comes together, a scab forms, all the while it's painful. You get the idea. I won't belabor the analogy. So an acceptance of this understanding that there are many truths, even if we don't like some of them, is an acceptance of the time and pain that's needed to truly heal this wound. When we approach each other with this understanding that not only that we have different truths, but that we are all inclined to believe myths as well, that our truth may not be factual as well, even though we absolutely believe it is, when we're open to listening to another story and truly absorbing it and then reevaluating our story. Now, we may not come to another truth, but when we're open to that, we lose our adamance that we are always right no matter what. And be sure, don't get me wrong, we must be very aware of doing our due diligence to research the facts. Facts are important. And to call out the lies when we hear them. We can see how harmful lies can be. But if it's a myth we're listening to, or if it's a deeply held truth that we're confronted with, we really need to stop, respectfully listen to another person's story instead of just shouting facts and statistics. And when we do that, I pretty much guarantee then we'll be able to tell our stories and have them heard. We'll likely even reconsider our story. When I talk to my brother and I listen to his deeply held passions, truly listen and respect and validate, he's then more willing to listen to mine and reevaluate his. We both come a little bit closer together, and that wound heals just a little bit. Now, I'm not going to convince him or anyone on the other side of the aisle anytime soon that I'm 100% right. Eventually I may, or change their mind right away. But I might get them to think about their story as I think about mine, and they might listen more to my evidence as I do theirs. And in that way, that wound will begin to come together. It'll be slow. It'll be a little at a time. It'll take a lot of struggle. But along with this new understanding of truth, we may just be able to heal it. I want to close by reading from the book When Breath Becomes Air. Some of you may have heard of it. It's a book about a neurosurgeon with cancer. And even though he's a neurosurgeon, he's a doctor, when he talks to his doctors, he can't seem to get the absolute truth that he wants so desperately. And he begins to understand this idea that there's not an absolute truth. So the quote is this: struggle toward the capital T, truth, but recognize that the task is impossible. or that if correct, or if a correct answer is possible, verification certainly is impossible. In the end, it cannot be doubted that each of us can see only a part of the picture. The doctor sees one, the patient another, the engineer a third, the economist a fourth, the pearl diver a fifth, the alcoholic a sixth, the cable guy a seventh, the sheep farmer an eighth, the Indian beggar a ninth, the pastor a tenth. Human knowledge is never contained in just one person. It grows from the relationships we create between each other and the world. And still, it's never complete. And truth comes somewhere above all of them. That's the quote. So let's move forward. We'll do our due diligence on facts. We'll make sure we research the facts. We'll call out the liars when we know they're lying. But let's also start practicing more listening to each other's deeply held truths before we demand we're right. And see if the wound then starts to close up.